Alright guys, today we're going to take a look at how to properly install the front wheel and axle on your electric dirt bike. This ensures that your suspension isn't being bound up, make sure that everything is torqued correctly, and ensuring that your brakes are functioning as they should. Alright, so there's a couple tools that you'll need for this job. Depending on your fork setup, we require a ratchet with a couple different sizes of Allen keys. You'll need a torque wrench of some kind, whether it's digital or mechanical. And then some gloves are useful, as well as some rags. This will just help keep everything clean and tidy as you go. Alright, so for simplicity's sake, we fast forwarded to having the front wheel off the bike. This will be a walkthrough on how to reinstall it correctly. If you have any questions on how to take it off, please reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help do that. But for the sake of this video, reinstallation. I failed to mention earlier that you may need a flat blade screwdriver of some sort, or a gasket scraper or something like that, to separate the pads on your front brake if they are a little bit too tight. I like doing this just a little bit anyway, just to give myself a little bit extra space. So what we're going to go ahead and do is put the screwdriver very carefully between your two brake pads in the front here and just give it a slight twist. You want to be careful not to damage the pads, so don't gouge this pad or anything with your screwdriver. I just barely separated them, maybe 2 millimeters is all, to give myself extra space when putting that front disc back in line. Okay, so once I have the brake pads slightly separated, just a little tiny bit like I mentioned with the screwdriver, I'm going to go ahead and roll the wheel into place here, making sure that my brake discs slide perfectly between the two pads. Make sure that your wheel spacers are installed and in position. Now the wheel is relatively close to where it's going to end up. At this point, we'll take our axle. You'll notice on this end, the left side of this axle is a larger diameter. That goes on the right side of the fork when riding the bike. This is a larger diameter, so make sure that you match the larger diameter axle side to the larger diameter hole on your fork tubes. Go ahead and wiggle the wheel around, do what you need to do to get that axle to begin. Don't force anything, it will fit. Just make sure everything is aligned up properly. So I've got it most of the way through here, and now it's right here on the wheel spacer. Go ahead and just make some minor adjustments as need be. You may have to rotate your fork tube ever so slightly one way or another to get that to slide through. So now you can see my axle is poked all the way through. I'm ready to put on the end cap. So we'll just finger tighten the end cap here. When doing all these, make sure that you do not cross thread, as cross threading will cause you nightmares down the road. Alright, so we got that started by hand. We'll go ahead and just use our ratchet here and tighten it up. We're not going to torque this all the way, just go ahead and get it snug. You'll see that the axle begins to spin on one side, that's okay. So get that seated all the way. So at this point, your axle is pulled tight from the back side here to the front side, and we have not done anything with our pinch bolts. That's intentional. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and hand tighten or slightly snug the disc side pinch bolts onto the axle. So we don't want to go too tight. Like I said, just snug them a little bit. Okay, so now that we have this front side tightened down, snug, not torqued but snug, we're going to go ahead and set the suspension, make sure that nothing is binding. So the way we do this is we're going to go ahead and just rotate the front wheel and grab the front brake firmly. So what this will do is this will set the fork tube here on the back side to where it needs to be on the axle so that it's not binding. So we call that seated on the axle. At this point, we can go ahead and tighten down the backside pinch bolts here. Once again, tightening, not torquing. We will torque once everything is tight. Okay, so now we have both front and back side pinch bolts tightened but not torqued, and we are ready to torque to spec. So depending on your fork manufacturer, some of them may have the torque specs printed somewhere on the fork tube foot, but if not, refer to your user manual, or sometimes the internet may be needed to figure out what your torque specs are for your given fork. All right, so at this point, we're ready to torque our pinch bolts down. Depending on your manufacturer spec, make sure that you're not over torquing these, as if you strip these out, it will be a major disaster to get them repaired or replaced. So for these forks that we're using on this example, manufacturer recommends 10 Newton meters of torque. So we're gonna go ahead and torque these down. Okay, all right, so now that we've got everything torqued to spec, everything's tight, our brakes have been pumped again, now they're all tight, ready to go, you're ready to ride.